Well, great afternoon. I've been listening to this near-death experience on Next Level Soul. I'll put the link in if you want to hear the whole of it. But I want to play this part where he passed when he was 8 years old. Now, he also saw his birth, going through the birth canal and all of that, which he talks about as well there. But he is at the point here telling about that they showed him history, and he was able to see some things that were going to happen in history. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and you'll hear part of the things about some things that I have talked about here, about the churches, etc. And so I'm going to leave this here. But he did talk about, now when he talked about the woman took him to, there it was Mother Mary, mother of Yeshua ben Joseph, and he said that Yeshua, Jesus was, because he was, when he left and he was there, it was like he was 8 years old at that present time. So Yeshua spoke to him, as an 8-year-old and explained things to him. So you may want to listen to the rest of this as well. But we're going to listen to this part where he goes in and they're showing him history, what is happening. Now, I've heard part of it up to where they start talking about the churches, which is things that I have spoken about. And so we're just going to go, and I'm going to play this so that you can hear this for yourselves, because this is very interesting.
If you'd like to talk about it.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to.
Okay. Because a lot of that is happening right now.
Right.
So Mother eventually took me to, it felt like a room, but it was very big. And in this room, I saw some entities standing around. It was kind of like a machine, but it was a model of the earth, and it was very big. And this earth was like up on a pedestal, and it rotated just like the earth would. And I could sort of remember underneath part of the pedestal was like there was some controls, like buttons or something. And these entities were maintaining it. So I was curious, and I asked, what is this thing? And I was told that it was like a time capsule. So all past events on Earth that humanity experiences are kept there. But also that I could see the future. So at first I was curious about the past, and they showed me something because I wasn't specific about what I wanted to see. So they showed me a really old city. It might have been Rome, or it might have gone back further, because I remember donkeys and carts and like a parade through town. And I lost interest in it pretty quick. So then I decided, well, I'd rather see the future. So I walked up to these entities that were maintaining it, and one of them was like a teacher. And Mother handed me off to her and told me, just work with her. She'll tell you everything you need to know. And she did. She talked like a teacher. She was like very businesslike and down to earth, and she gave me very direct questions or answers. And when she told me something, she expected me to understand it. She got a little bit impatient with me if I didn't. But I came to her and I said, well, I'm interested in the future, but I said, where do I fit into all this? Can you show me where my time is on Earth? And she goes, oh, yeah, I can show you that. She pointed down on the planet where I was born, which is central Nebraska. Mm-hmm. She pointed to it, and as soon as she did, she was here. Here it is. Instantly, a vision opened up in front of me like a screen, and I could see things going on down on Earth in my time frame. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, she said, if you go back down to earth, this is some of what you will see. This is what you'll experience in your life. So the very first thing I saw, I was like standing on grass next to a street, and there was a row of cars driving through the city, paved roads, nice big cars. And somehow I understood that this was a procession, and in that car was the President of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Kennedy.
And then all of a sudden, something happened. People were crying and they were upset, and the car sped off. I didn't see the blood and the gore, but I knew it was the president. I was shocked. See, I was in the hospital. This happened. My near death happened about a week before he was shot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when they sent me back to Earth and I was sick and I was in the hospital, I didn't remember anything about it. But I remember arguing with the entity, the teacher entity. I was like, I liked Kennedy. See, I was only 8, but I knew that my parents really liked him. JFK, they liked him. And so I saw that he was hurt, and I was asking, why would God let this happen? If you know this is going to happen in advance, why can't you stop it? Why won't you stop it? That kind of stuff. And I was pretty much told, they can't interfere. We can't interfere, they said. And the reason was humanity makes choices out of their hands. Humanity makes choices that sometimes lead to terrible things like this, and they just have to let it go. Humanity has chosen this path, and they have to let it go. I wasn't real comfortable with the explanation, but what can I do? Mm-hmm. You know, I was in their hands.
Can't really complain.
So from there,
can't really complain. There's no complaint department.
What are they gonna?
Customer service.
Yeah,
you can go to.
That's right. I'm gonna take my ball and go home now.
Right.
Can't do that. So, yeah, and then they told me, they sped it up, and then they told me that actually there's some important things that are going to happen in your life that you're going to witness. And so they decided to speed it up and to go. And then I was told that these things that you're going to see are going to happen later in your life. But I saw them speeding it up. I saw things jumping around on the screen, and I saw wars. I saw people marching in the streets. I saw love and good things too. But it just all went real fast, and then all of a sudden it slowed down. And then I saw an image of the Supreme Court building. And it's a unique building because of the facade, the front, and the pillars in front. And the facade is elevated just a little bit. And I was told this is a government building in the United States. And toward the end of your life, or later in your life, some things are going to happen. And there's some things that are going to happen through this building that are disruptive, that cause some turmoil in your country. They never told me what exactly that would be, but they said it'll all start with this building and what's happening there. So I went public with my story in 2014, 2015 through a group called NDERF. I don't know if you're familiar, but that's my first time that I went public. And in 2015, they ruled that gay marriage was legal. And then I saw all the disruption coming out of evangelical churches and politicians raising a big stink about it. Then there was that county clerk that was going to get thrown in jail, and they were protesting, and they were really offended by the whole thing. I saw that as the beginning of the turmoil. So I'm sticking with it. I've had people tell me that maybe it was a ruling on abortion. No, the beginning was the ruling on gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I took it. Because things really have snowballed since then.
Mm-hmm.
So then from the Supreme Court building, then it jumped, and I saw all kinds of storms and stuff hitting the east coast of the country. And since about, well, let's see, back in the, seems like in early 90s, or maybe it was the late 80s, Andrew was a terrible hurricane.
I was in it.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were, oh, wow.
Yeah,
You're a survivor.
I was in Fort Lauderdale. I wasn't in Miami. I was in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and I felt it. And a tree fell on our roof. I mean, we laid on the roof, thank God, didn't break through, but we had some damage, and it was terrifying. My grandfather slept through the whole thing. He was snoring, because, you know, it's grandpa. But it was pretty terrifying. Yeah, he'd wake up in the morning, he's like, is it over?
Wow. What a cool old man. I would have loved it.
He's seen some stuff. So, yeah, no, I definitely I've been in a few hurricanes in my life.
Well, there's been an increase of bad storms starting back, I guess, in the late 80s, whatever, moving on up. And boy, around, I think it seems like 2009, 2012, there were even more.
You start growing every year. Every year it's gotten worse.
Every year it's getting worse. And I saw that. I saw more and more storms coming to the United States. And then I saw lots of people, pockets of people dying, like in cities, concentrations of people dying. When I first described this a long time ago, I assumed it was because of storms.
Mm-hmm.
But now COVID has hit, and there were pockets of people in cities close to each other, all dying. So I wonder if maybe it wasn't COVID, but I just didn't understand that it was sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Then it skipped, and then I saw Hillary Clinton campaigning for the presidency in 2016. I heard her voice. She had a campaign voice that as soon as she was on TV and I heard it, I knew. Mm-hmm. I had seen this in advance. And I remember being a little bit surprised that a woman was running for president, because in '63 nobody would ever consider something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked the teacher entity. I asked her, something like, "Well, she sounds all right." I was told that this woman campaigning for the presidency would be there with another president, like she was important. And sure enough, Bill was on the campaign trail with her all the time.
Of course.
So it must have been Bill. I remember telling the entity, I was like, well, she sounds all right. I don't think she would be a bad president or something like that. I was told, yeah, but she may not be allowed to serve. She may not win. And it was explained that there were laws that might interfere. And that's all I was really told.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not tell me anything bad about her whatsoever. Like if she had won, they would have been fine with it. And if Hillary ever hears one of my sessions, I hope she hears me say that. She's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then from there, it skipped again. And then I was shown this very angry, disruptive man in our government. I don't recall his face. All I can recall is his personality was just nasty. Always unhappy, never satisfied, always complaining, wanting more, expecting it to be handed to him. Chewing people out all the time, and he had blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
Then, because of this man, I saw demonstrations in the streets and people fighting and arguing. Lots of disruption in our country. And I remember feeling really disgusted by the whole thing, because this man was the source of it all. That's the way I took it, in any way. And I remember asking the teacher entity, where did this guy come from? This is ridiculous. Why is he our president? And she showed me a vision, and it was like I saw a vision of the Bible again. Bible opened up, and it was like flow charts were going around through the pages. Pages would flip, the bar graph would change. And what I was told was, this is the progression of human history from the beginning. And it went very fast, just zip, 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 zip. And then it slowed down, and then it stopped, and then like an arrow jumped out of the Bible and landed in old Europe. And then the vision took me there, and I saw people in Europe building churches, but it was like the Middle Ages, early Christian churches. And I saw them building cathedrals and, big structures. Then I was told that these people would establish their churches, establish their rules, their beliefs, that they would bring them with them, and they would immigrate to the United States. I actually saw them getting on ships and sailing to the U.S. Then another arrow jumped out of the Bible, and it landed in the deep south of the U.S., like around Georgia, Arkansas, Louisiana, down in there, Mississippi, the deep south. Landed down in there. And then I was told this man would become president because of churches that came from Europe over here to the United States. And they supported this man and helped get him elected. And then I saw these churches in America growing, big structures, big complexes, schools, fancy mansions that people were living in, lots of money being exchanged. And I saw them involved in politics. And I was told, point blank, stay away from these people. Stay away from these churches. They are evil and they are harmful, and they will do you no good. I was like, all right. And so I never have had anything to do with them. I never listened to them. I mean, in the early 80s, with the advent of cable TV, that's when televangelism started, and they started with their Starlinks or whatever they call themselves, Godlink, with their satellites, and they're broadcasting all their stuff on TV. Well, when cable TV first came out, you could accidentally come across one of their channels and listen to them moan and groan about what God needs. But it always was, God needs your money.
To buy me a new plane.
Yeah, a new plane, yeah. Because I can't stand to be in a commercial plane. That's a tube of demons. Oh, please. But yeah, I was shown just how evil and backwards these people were and how far away from true religion they were. It's a business they have. It's not a church, it's a business. And so they use their money to influence politics. And of course, the politicians will take that money gladly and do as the money givers ask. So yeah, that's how Donald Trump got elected, partly from them. And so, but then I saw a lot more demonstrations in the streets. And then I saw one really bad demonstration. I mean, people were getting hurt bad. And I do know the location was south of New York City. Now, at first I thought it was Charlottesville. But because of the destructiveness, I think what I was shown was the insurrection. Took place in Washington, D.C. is basically south of New York.
Sure.
So I saw that. Then I saw this angry president. I saw him in the Oval Office in the White House, and he looked really kind of spooked and a little bit scared. And he was walking back and forth, not knowing what was going to happen next. He was very unsure of himself, and he kept going out into the hallway expecting visitors, and they weren't coming, and they finally showed up. And he didn't like what they had to tell him. He got very upset. And then they took him out of the White House, out into the lawn, and they left him there. And then the next vision jumped, and he's holding a rally on the steps of, close to the steps of a large building in Washington, D.C. He's behind a microphone, and he's telling people to fight, fight, fight. And he's shaking his fist. And Donald Trump did exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
The day of the insurrection. And then from there, I just saw a lot of chaos, a lot of fighting, a lot of disruption in the country, people arguing and not agreeing with anything. I did see at one point, I saw, like, in our government, I saw like a panel of people discussing him. And I'm not so sure that now that the January 6th committee has been formed, I'm not so sure I wasn't shown them. But when I first started talking about this, there was a lot of talk of impeaching Donald.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's been impeached
And
twice.
so a couple of years back when I was interviewed, I said, he will be impeached. And sure enough, he was. Twice. So, yeah, so I saw the disruption. And then I saw Donald at a rally somewhere close, not too far away from Washington, D.C. It was kind of like the upper Northeast, up in there somewhere. I saw him at a rally, getting people riled up again. But not too long after the rally, it was like he suddenly clutched his heart like he'd been hurt. And he couldn't breathe, and he looked scared. And then I saw him sort of get sucked into a spiral, like a tunnel. The same kind of spiral that I went through when I died on the table. He got sucked into it, and then I saw him spinning inside that tunnel, and then he got sucked in and he disappeared. The very next thing I saw, he was in a hospital room, was surrounded by, I think, his family. And I pretty much understood that he was dying. He didn't have long to live.
He had a heart attack?
Heart attack, or maybe he was shot. I don't know. But that's the next thing that I expect to happen very, very soon. Every time I see a picture of him not all made up with his orange goop and in a suit and everything, God, he looks awful. Pale and yuck. So I expect something to happen to him any day now.
So
he's still holding rallies.
Yeah, and then you talked, I think you spoke about something about a complete either civil war or war within the United States, something, like things happening.
So after he passes away, then I saw a major increase in fighting and destruction in the streets. And I saw a group of people acting very covert, go into a tower-like building, kind of like a small skyrise. It turns out to be a TV studio is what it looked like. And people, my wife was home. So people are inside this place, and there's an explosion. And I saw, it looked like a TV studio with cables and lights hanging, and they're all burned and broken. And then I asked, why were people attacking this building? Why were they demonstrating around it? Because they were very angry. And I was told, because they believe lies. They're being told lies on purpose, and they believe them. And so I asked, what is this place? And it was explained to me like it was a place where information is shared. So it could have been like a TV studio, or it could have been like connected to the internet. So that happens. And then after that, there's a period where there's like an investigation. And I saw two men, probably in their 30s maybe. One has darker hair, one had lighter hair, tied to money with a real flippant attitude. And they're being interviewed and talked to because of that explosion. and they were being asked what they knew about it, and why, who was involved, and why did it happen. And the one with the darker hair laughed it off like, he didn't care. So, this is the way it is. You know, what's the government expect? Boy, that sure sounded to me like Don Jr. Or it could have been Shapiro. Could have been that black-haired kid, Shapiro. Because I remember hearing a laugh, and it was hideous. And I've never heard Junior laugh, but I've heard Shapiro laugh, and it was pretty bad. So it could have been Shapiro. I don't know. I can't say for sure. I can't see Shapiro as being any kind of a leader. Not really. But for that matter, Don Jr., I can't imagine him a leader either. But they were presented to me as if they were leaders. And that's why they were being interviewed by the government. And then after that, things just got crazy. I saw people being pulled out of their homes in the middle of the night, like in raids, and arrested. I saw violence. I saw people killing each other. It was almost like the beginning of a civil war. Then I saw an army being built, and it looked like it came out of the West, like California. And that's where it organized. And they marched across the United States. But they organized about where I'm living, like through Nebraska, because we're just west of the Mississippi here. And the Mississippi was important. And so they organized before they crossed the Mississippi. And then fighting just over the top. Blood, destruction, people fighting. But at the same time, some of what I saw almost looked like an earthquake. Because I saw buildings shaking and toppling. I saw flooding happening. I saw a major flood hit somewhere like close to Omaha, between Omaha and Iowa. I saw people dying instantly. The water came from nowhere. They're totally caught off guard. So the only way I can picture that happening is because of earthquake.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if there's a tidal wave that hits Omaha, we're screwed. That the world has gone down. If there's a tidal wave that comes in that hits Omaha.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe it's big enough that the Great Lakes, one of them drains, maybe.
Something like that, maybe, yeah.
Something like that. Or maybe the Missouri River backs up.
That's where the water's coming from. Got it.
The Missouri River is really big, deep. So, yeah, I wasn't shown anything about that. I'm just supposing when I say that. But, no, but what I did see was multiple spirits of people jumping out of their bodies, screaming, terrified, because they're overwhelmed by water, totally caught off guard by surprise, and jumping out of their bodies, instantly dying. And that wasn't a very pleasant thing. So during the worst of it, when it got really, really bad, my 8-year-old mind, my consciousness, it was overwhelming. And I turned away at one point. I couldn't watch it. It was just too much. But eventually, I did look back, as the teacher entity told me to. So I looked back, and one of the next things I saw was the fighting started to die down, but I saw a concentration of people fighting around a building. Now I'm guessing, location-wise, it could have been Arkansas. I don't know my states down there so well. It could have been Arkansas. It could have been Louisiana. Could have been Mississippi. It was a state that I believe borders the Gulf of Mexico. And I saw a building that looked fortified, but it looked like it was one level. It wasn't a skyrise. It looked like it was one level. A lot of people inside. It was big, and it looked strong, like it was stone, like it could have been a government building. And I saw people marching around that building, covert. There was fighting going on and gunshots and people dying. Finally, the army gets inside that building and kills everyone in there. Then after that, the fighting dies down. But what struck me, it went down to my core, was when that building is destroyed or everyone inside is killed, I saw something like a demon rise up out of that building. And it didn't really have a human form, although it had a face. But it was big. It was like a balloon. It was like a blob, and it was black. And it didn't care that everybody died. It wanted them to die. It wanted the destruction. It was the source of all the anger. It rose up, and it had to leave because its job was done. And it was happy with itself. It rose up and left, and it laughed, laughing all the way. But as soon as it was gone, the fighting stopped. And it died down. And then people were like, well, why are we fighting? Why did we do all that? And then I also remember hearing some people say, why did we believe all these wrong things that made us so angry? It made us kill each other. Why did we do that? Because they were looking around and they were looking at all the destruction. It was like they were in a trance when they were fighting. They weren't in control. But once that black thing left, then their eyes were opened up and they were like, we don't want to fight. That's what it was like. I even saw one young man feeling a lot of remorse, and he was sitting alone next to a building that was completely destroyed. I mean, there were a few pillars and there were a couple walls left standing, but the building was wasted. And I remember hearing his thoughts, and he was like, why did we believe all that crap? Why was it so easy for them to fool us? And then why did we follow it? And why did we kill so many people? So many people died and they didn't have to. I remember feeling that remorse coming out of him. Then after that, I saw things get a little bit better. The country started to rebuild, reorganize. And there was a strong sense of our government had been taken advantage of, and that's why the fighting happened. Or it was like our government was structured in a way that it could be taken advantage of, and that was going to have to change. Our government was going to have to be restructured. But it'd be for the better.
I mean, you could see it now. I mean, it's being tested. It's being tested all the time over the last, 6 years or so. It's things that you and I would have never even thought of, growing up.
Unless you have a really devious mind.
Right. Things are like, these are institutions. These are things that just you never think about.
Now, as he was talking about that, my feeling was it's going to be in Texas that would happen, by the Gulf area in Texas. So let's continue. But difficult times coming. But, and it's like I said, it's that shadow substance, that shadow of delusion that overtakes that. Let's listen to the rest of this. Now, this is not to get put fear, because that's what the shadow substance wants. It wants division, it wants fear. But we will come out the other side. So when these things happen, like I said, there's going to be more earthquakes, there's going to be more floods, worse hurricanes and that type of thing is going to happen. And they may get that radical of that craziness. Now, we was talking about the young guy with the horrid laugh. What flashed with me was the guy, the one that's not Don Jr. because he's too stupid, but that other kid Fuentes, the one that's doing the Nazi, the neo-Nazi guy. But let's continue and hear the rest of it. We're almost to the end of this. But I thought it was an important one to listen to.
Any of this kind of stuff.
I think the responsible parties are nothing but think tanks, and they sit there and work out ways to disrupt our government, and they're doing it on purpose. And there's money behind it all.
So
Yeah, it's these anarchists, the ones like Steve Bannon, Miller, what's the name of the guy that's saying, all of this it's the Alex Jones. All these ones that are just, absolutely lying. And unfortunately, people are believing it. So, let's continue forward with this.
So, is there anything positive, sir, out of this this future? It's pretty doom and gloom here, sir.
Yes, it is. Well, okay, just a little bit more. Bear with me. So I saw some building going on and the country getting better, and it was a positive time of rebuilding. I saw that, and everybody was starting to feel like the future was bright again. But then I saw some more destruction enter the picture, but it wasn't internal in our country. It seemed like it was external from the world, other countries. And then I saw some fighting start up again. And then I saw a major explosion happen somewhere around, it looked like Yellowstone, where it's located. It looked like an atomic bomb, and it was huge. And there was a ring of white that came out of that explosion that stayed close to the ground and expanded, completely covered the continent. And then I'm floating there in the air with this entity, and she's showing me this going on, and I understood perfectly that it wiped out most human life. It was gone. It just wiped it out. And then I saw our country became real quiet and peaceful. So there were animals again, and I saw trees growing, and it became very beautiful. Eventually, the teacher entity took me to a place, and it looked like it was the Georgia coast, close to the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. And I saw a tribe of people living there, and they were like indigenous people. They wore very simple clothing, but they were full of love. They were very spiritual, very happy. And a very strange thing that I got out of it was you and I, our generations, our pots and pans, our prized possessions.
So, this fits in with some of the Native American prophecies that said that basically technology is going to be the undoing, and that the only thing one has left to hold on to, which came through some of my reading as well, is one's spirituality. Okay? So, it looks like that technology is going to be wiped clean, and then it's that restarting of a new section. But when that, if that takes place, people will be taken out of their bodies very quickly. And then again, things will come back into play. But let's listen to the rest of this. Again, this is not to instill fear into people and dread, and we have free will, but what he's getting, this is the path forward if we don't change things. So let's hear the rest of this.
These indigenous people, when they discovered a potter pan that was usable, they loved it and they used them. Yeah, it was like, but they were so full of love and they were getting along with each other very well. But they seemed to have enhanced spiritual power, like they could heal each other.
Mm.
And they were causing plants to grow.
Mm.
So they never went hungry.
How many years ahead of it is this, you think?
Oh, I can only guess, but well, once an atomic bomb has been dropped, I don't think the ground is livable for quite a while.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hiroshima taught us that.
Yeah, so I wasn't giving any time reference. I was just shown that life is wiped out.
In the area that the bomb drops, or in the area of the continent?
It felt like almost all the continent was dead, is what I felt like.
Mm. Okay.
But I only saw the one explosion.
Okay.
Oh, and another thing, I saw as the explosion was going up into a big mushroom cloud, I saw something that looked like an angel floating over the continent, and it was gathering up souls, and it was directing them up to heaven. It was helping them rise up. I saw that. It's a very vague image, but I do remember seeing that.
Okay.
So the teacher entity, after she showed me these loving people living close to the coast, she said, so you see, Ken, there's going to be a lot of disruption coming, a lot of bad, evil things that mankind has caused on their own. It's going to have to be worked through, and you're going to see some really bad stuff. But what you have to know is, in the end, things are going to get much better. And mankind is going to be more in line with the teachings of God and living the way, through love, the way we're supposed to live. We've got a lot of habits and practices that we've adopted over the centuries that nobody challenges that.
Right, and that's absolutely things that are kind of just legacy of the old and old. I mean, look, we could have had electric cars in 2000. I mean, we could have switched over from fossil fuels a long time ago. We have the technology to do so, but financial interests have said no. And I get it.
In the name of making a profit.
I understand. There's a reason why a McDonald's burger is cheaper than a piece of broccoli. Like, I mean, it's just it's not that we can't do things, is that we choose not to, and it's like a big ship. I look at society as like this giant aircraft carrier that takes forever to turn. It's slow. It's not a speedboat that can just jump all over the place. It just takes so long to move. And even in the last 20 years, I've seen it shift. I mean, from, now we all got on board. We're like, I think electric is going to be where we're going to go. And we got to find some other fuel sources to become energy independent, just on a political standpoint, to have freedom from, why are we buying oil from countries that want to kill us? Like, it's like, there's some logic there, and there's more spirituality. There's more understanding of spirituality. There is an awakening happening, but there's a lot of disruption as well. So it's just like it's kind of like growing pains in many ways.
It is, exactly. And the way it was shown to me, it was like, what's happening here, it was like predestined, and humanity chose this path, and it's not going to change until we change.
Right.
So the path we're on, I mean, when you think about, well, I watched the news broadcast about the Ukraine war, for example, and it's like how some of the people on TV are like analyzing the effectiveness of this type of advance, that kind of thing. It's almost like a football game. Mm-hmm. They're encroaching in the enemy's territory, and what next? And it's.
But deadly.
It's very deadly and unnecessary.
Completely.
Because that strange, weird guy in Russia has an ego problem that he can't shake. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, Ken, thank you for sharing this journey with me. Well, wait a minute. So you've seen all of this, and then you get sent back into your body, right?
Right. Eventually, Mother came back and got me, took me away from all that, and took me back to my immediate family. And I believe that was like at the opening of heaven. And I was told I had to make a decision if I was going to stay up there with them or I was going to come back. But I decided to come back because I was told that my mother on earth was praying for me and that she'd be very sad if I stayed. So I decided to come back. But one other thing I need to tell you, though, is right after I was shown all those visions of the future, Mother took me aside and she said something about, if you go back with all this knowledge, if you go back to earth with all this in your head, she said, I do not want you to be a child prophet. And she said, child prophet. Because she said, if you remember all this when you're a child and you talk about it, your life is going to be very difficult. She decided to protect me. So she sort of reached into my consciousness and she smoothed over a whole bunch of that future stuff and just wiped it out. I didn't remember it until I was I think it was in my early 20s. I woke up in a real intense dream and God spoke to me in my dream and woke me up. And then after that, it just opened my eyes. It just opened up all those old memories. And then I remembered all kinds of detail about my near death. It all came back. Mm. So throughout my childhood, I never talked about war and destruction and all that because I didn't remember it.
Right.
And I was just as surprised as everyone else when I found out that JFK died because I didn't remember that either.
Right.
So
then you get sent back down and then you live your life and you're here with us now sharing your knowledge. Well, go ahead.
I have to tell you that in 2015, when the election was getting more intense, mm-hmm. I mean, the 2016 election was coming, and I knew that Trump was running. I knew that Hillary was running. I was like beside myself for a while because I could feel the intensity of the country. I was familiar with it. I was shown all that when I was in heaven, and it was a reminder of all that stuff. And I knew some really bad things were just coming any minute. And I went on an interview with a guy called Lee Whitting. He works through IONS, and he's got a radio broadcast. He was the very first person to interview me. Mm-hmm. And in 2015, he interviewed me, and I told him about all this future stuff. What he didn't realize that day was it was so intense. I felt like I had to warn humanity. We're about to make the wrong turn. And I didn't want that to happen. And I'm rattling all this stuff off about these people are wrong and those people are wrong. And this is going to happen next. And we need to avoid it. And, look out. And Lee, at the end of the interview, was kind of like, now, Ken, he goes, where's all the love? He goes, usually when I interview people, there's love. But where's all your love? And he kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, I was trying to warn people. I had to get it out. I only had an hour,
So let me ask you one last question. I want to ask you, what, as far as the economy and things like that, what happens during all this time? Do we lose the dollar? Do we go back to gold coins? Do we what did you get any information about that?
No.
Oh my God, talking about wars, civil war, all this stuff, and what's the guy asked? What about the money? It was like, really? Talking about, wiping the whole continent, people gone, and this guy's asking about money. It gobsmacks you. It just is, what are you going to do with money when all of this chaos would take place? last thing should be worrying about is financial money. I'm just, what is wrong with these people? Oh my goodness. I can't believe that came out of his mouth.
I didn't. All I saw and all I felt was the anguish and the disruption that people, I felt their emotional reaction to everything is what I felt. And then every so often I would see a particular figure like Donald who was making it worse.
Well, Ken, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests. What is your definition of living a good life?
Living a good life is being an open, honest person where you don't take yourself too seriously, and you're empathetic, and you're open to the feelings of other people, and you want to help them if you can, and you leave yourself open to love.
What is your mission in this life?
My mission? Oh boy. At this point in my life, I just want to get along with people. I live in isolation in Nebraska, way out in the country, and I love it. My mission, I'm not so much into warning people anymore because everything's in motion. I can't stop it now. However, if it comes down to fighting a war, do you people really want to do that? I mean, come on. Do you want to tear your country apart to that point? I don't think so. And I don't think we should do it. But I don't think anybody's going to listen to me. I'm not taken serious because I'm a spiritual guy that claims that he went to heaven and met God.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Well, there's a lot of people in churches that tell you what God wants too, and it has nothing to do with preventing a war. It has everything to do with tithing and get on the floor and grovel because you don't deserve a damn thing, you sinner. What a waste of time all that is.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Since I was shown that I have a long history in my family, the growth of the family, I believe, is very important. And so to contribute to your family by living and being fruitful and extending those generations, because I saw that guy at the end of the tunnel absorbing all that light. I believe each new generation that came after him elevated him closer to that light. So live and be fruitful, grow your families. If you don't want to get married, that's fine. I saw single people up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Live your life and grow and be good as best as you can. And then when you die and you go up to heaven, the rest of your family gets elevated one step closer to God. And so be responsible and think about your contribution to your family. And then wrap your love and appreciation for them in your good memories about them, the laughter, the love, and the comfort you felt with them, the good deeds they did for you when they made you feel good. Remember them and think about it, because I think those positive thoughts get through like a prayer, and I think it honors them up in heaven.
Ken?
So there we go. That's the end of the interview. So I thought it was interesting. If what he saw, and I wouldn't doubt it, the projection, the way that people were going, comes to pass, at least one knows what is going to take place, that eventually, and it might take this big, huge, big uprising to finally, come together. But it looks like the things of this country would come together, okay, and starting to get better, starting to work things out. and the end point, whatever, would come from outside, Korea or Russia or China, something like that. But the good news is, if that happens, people will be directed, would be leaving their body rapidly, and would go on the rest of the journey, okay, to again progress. So I'm going to leave this here. Like I said, this is a possibility. I wouldn't say go into fear mode and stuff about it. Because we have free will. Okay, we have free will and things can change. So I'm going to leave this here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you online.